Hi everybody, it is Sam again from the G/STEM team. STEM, of course, standing for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. We've got another STEM activity video for you guys today. Today's video is going to follow along with the weekly Scout Challenges theme of Animals Are Awesome. So today we are talking animals. We actually have one of my favorite animals. I happen to love creepy crawlies, little things. Today we are talking about roly polies. We're going to be learning how to make a temporary roly poly hotel. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about roly polies. Roly polies are actually a creature called an isopod. Isopods are technically not bugs. They are not insects. They are actually more closely related to crabs, shrimp, and lobsters, which would put them in the crustacean group. Some cool things about roly polies or isopods are they can curl up into a ball. They can use kind of their hard shell to protect themselves. Some other cool things, since they are a crustacean, they actually don't breathe the same way we do or other insects do. They actually have gills, and we're going to need to make sure we kind of meet their needs to make sure they can breathe when we make our roly poly hotel. So first things first, I went out and collected some roly polies this morning. Roly polies are great because they are completely harmless. They do not bite. In fact, when they're scared, instead of trying to run away, usually they just roll up into a ball. Another cool thing is you can see they can't climb a plastic container. They can't climb very well. So I'm able just to leave them in this container without worrying about them get out. So what we're going to do is make a temporary hotel, a little temporary container you can observe them for a couple days in. To do that, we are going to need a larger plastic container. This one's still pretty small. You can do bigger if you'd like, but I thought this size worked really well. This is just a plastic food container. What I've done though, to make sure our roly polies get enough oxygen, I've cut a few ventilation holes or poked a few ventilation holes with a push pin on the lid there and also a few on each side. So you want a plastic container. You're going to want some what we call in biology substrate, which is some dirt, something for them to live on or in. You're going to want some food, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But first, let's show you how to put all this together. Alright, so you can see we have all of our supplies in front of us on our table. We've got our plastic container, we've got our isopods, our roly polies, we've got our substrate, our food, which we're going to talk about here in a sec, and some little extra things that they might need to be more comfortable. So first things first, let's put our substrate into our container. Again, I just used a plastic container that I washed out with some nice warm water. What I'm going to do now is just put some of my substrate in there. For my substrate, I just used some organic potting soil. Really, potting soil or dirt will work just fine. The main thing you want for your substrate is for it to be about a finger, the tip of your finger deep, so that your isopods have somewhere to kind of burrow. And then you also want there to be decaying organic matter in there. And basically what that means is we want there to be dead leaves or dead wood, rotting wood in there, because that is actually some of what our isopods are going to eat. Isopods are what we call decomposer, which means they eat dead things. Particularly for isopods, they eat dead plants. So that looks like a pretty good amount of substrate. You can see I pretty much filled the bottom. We mentioned that isopods actually have gills, so we want to make sure that our substrate is actually a little bit moist, and they need to have a little bit of humidity in order to breathe. So I'm going to mist it down a little bit. It does not need to be soaking wet, it just needs to be a little bit damp, and that's going to be perfect. Alright, so next let's add a little bit more food. So you can see when I collected my isopods, I also went out and got some dried leaves. I find that isopods really like oak and maple leaves a lot. This is an example of an oak leaf. This is a maple leaf. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to crumple up a few of my leaves, and I'm going to kind of sprinkle them into the container. This is going to be, again, some of our isopods' food, but it's also going to give them some places to hide. Whenever you make a little temporary hotel or container for any animal, you want them to make sure that they feel safe. So we've got some dried leaves in there. I've also gone out and collected some bark, some little acorn caps, and even, you do not have to do this, but I went and grabbed some moss. I'm actually going to go ahead and kind of push my moss in there. Your isopods don't need moss, but I think it adds a little bit, makes it look a little pretty, maybe make them a little more comfortable. So I'm just going to kind of push that in there a little bit. That looks pretty good. I'm going to add in my acorn caps. They really like to hide in the little spaces in the acorn caps. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my bark. My bark, not only can they eat some of the dried and decaying parts of the bark, but it's actually a really good place for them to hide when they're scared. I'm actually going to do one more thing. I'm going to go ahead and put a full dried leaf in there for them to munch on. So that is basically my container. All I need to do now is add in my isopods, my Roly Polies. So really quick, we should talk about how I actually collected my Roly Polies. The great thing about Roly Polies, besides them being harmless, is that they can be found pretty much anywhere. They usually show up in places that have dried or decaying leaves. So I actually found these underneath a flower pot. So go outside, take a walk, go in your backyard, look underneath flower pots, look underneath lumber, wood, and leaf piles is a great place. Make sure you're being safe when you collect isopods. Make sure you can tell it is an isopod before you grab it. A great way to tell is if it rolls up into a ball. So all I'm going to do now is just gently sprinkle my isopods in there, and you can see they pretty quickly are running off to all those hiding places. Awesome. So, I'm going to do one more thing. While I was waiting to start this video, I put a little fish food in the container with them, and they really seem to like it. Fish food is good protein. Isopods not only eat leaves and wood, they also need a little bit of protein that they usually get from eating other dead insects or animals. So I'm going to add just a little bit of fish food in there. You don't have to if you don't want to, especially if you're not going to be keeping them for very long. And then all I'm going to do next is close it off. Make sure the lid snaps on there. For keeping your isopods, I would only keep them in a container like this for maybe a couple days, at most a week. I would, if it looks like it's getting dry, open it up and spray it a little bit with your spray bottle, or sprinkle a little water in there. Isopods do like it dark, so if you want to keep this someplace like your basement, that would probably be best. They also like it a little bit warm, so you make sure to put it someplace that's not going to get too chilly. All right, so that is our video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned a little bit. I hope you like isopods, Roly Polies a little bit more now, maybe not as much as I do. But that is going to be our video for today. If you liked what you see, feel free to check out what other awesome activities we have going on this summer on our STEM and Scouting Facebook page. Thanks. Hope to see you guys next week, and please remember, keep scouting.